Easy, James here. Now, apologise if I sound a bit weird today. I've got a really bad throat and it's really sore, but ain't nobody got time for that, so I'm just going to soldier on like a boss. Anyway, in one of my previous videos I did about my DJ setup, I mentioned that I like to build my own furniture to put my turntables and stuff on, or just in general really, because I absolutely hate flat pack, because it might be cheap, it might be convenient and quick to put together, but it's rubbish. It's just so cheap and nasty, and it's all wobbly, it'll probably fall apart, and I certainly don't trust my 1210 sitting on top of some cheap piece of chipboard rubbish that's been assembled by some hungover bloody student in a factory somewhere in Glasgow. So I'd rather not be dealing with it, to be honest. I'd rather build it myself. Now, some of my subscribers did actually ask if I could do a video showing you how I build my furniture. Now, it just so happens that recently I built myself a new bench and some record storage. So I did actually film it, so I can show you that. Now, the thing is, when I was filming, there was somebody else in the workshop as well, and they were fixing a van, and they had rattle guns and all sorts going on. So it was so noisy, and a lot of this is actually going to be voiceover. So without further ado, let's go in the workshop and I'll show you how I erect my wood. In the workshop, wood. I'm leaving. So I'm going to turn this stack of MDF into some shelf units. So to start with, this is one of the sideboards. So the first thing I need to do with this is to mark a line 15mm from the front. Then I'll mark another line 75mm from the bottom and another one 18mm from that one. This is to mark the thickness of the material. Now I'm going to mark another line 342mm from that one and again mark the 18mm thickness. So now, measured from the top, I should have exactly 378mm. Spot on. Right, so now it's time to assemble the actual shelves. Now, the shelves are going to have this back piece and the shelf will sit in front of this bit. So this serves two purposes. Basically, it acts as a back brace and keeps everything nice and firm and solid, and I'll screw through this into the actual shelf, and hopefully that will stop the shelf from doing a Robin Hood's bow under all the weight of the records. And also it acts as a backstop, so when you push the records into the shelf, they'll hit this and then stop and keep all your records nice and level at the front of the shelf and stop them pushing back too far. So I've marked the back of the shelf where the biscuits are going, so now I've just got to transfer those marks onto the backboard. And now it's time to use some power tools. So over to the cupboard, and we need a biscuit cutter. Now this tool cuts a small groove in the wood that's perfectly sized and shaped to fit biscuits. So you cut grooves into both bits of wood that you want to join so that they match up with each other. Now these are biscuits, and they're just thin slivers of compressed wood that are shaped like, yep, you guessed it, biscuits. When you apply glue to them, they swell up in the slots that you cut and they make really strong joints. So now I'm just doing a quick dry fit to make sure everything fits together okay before I apply the glue. And although I'm doing it, don't use your palms as a mallet, it's actually really bad for your tendons. Okay, so everything fits fine, so it's time to fix it all together. So now I drill 4mm holes anywhere where screws are going. I'm putting 4mm screws in, so the holes allow the screw to push through the first bit of wood and grab into the second bit. Okay, so now I apply some wood glue. Now you want a nice thin layer of glue. You can use your fingers to spread this out, but don't wipe your fingers on your clothes. Also, make sure you put some glue on the biscuits themselves. This will make them nice and strong, so don't be stingy with the wood glue. And now I put the two pieces together, and don't bang it with your hands, use a hammer. That's better. So now I drill some pilot holes ready for the 40mm screws. Now I'm not countersinking the screws, I'm just burying them below the surface so they can be filled over later. Okay, so that's one shelf completely assembled. I've got 3 more to do now, so while I do that in super speed, we need to talk safety. Now, if you don't know how to use a power tool, or any tool for that matter, don't risk it. Get someone that knows what they're doing to show you how to use them safely. And when you're using wood glue, don't wipe your fingers on your clothes. But no, seriously, I've seen some quite simply hideous injuries on site because somebody simply didn't know how to use a tool properly. Okay, so that's 4 shelves fully assembled, so now it's time to prepare the side pieces. So I'll start by cutting some biscuit slots in the top edge to fix on the top brace. Then I'll cut biscuit slots in the end of the top brace itself. So now I need to cut biscuit slots in the middle section for the shelves. The way I do this is to clamp a metal straight edge on the lines that I marked for the shelves. I remove the fence from the cutter and transfer those marks onto the straight edge. Then I can just run the cutter along the straight edge. I can now move the straight edge down to the next shelf and do the same thing again. So now I put the fence back on the cutter and cut biscuit slots in the end of the shelves. I can then dry fit the shelves to make sure they all fit okay. Okay, so I'm going to apply the glue to all the joining surfaces and push the side panel in place. I've already drilled the 4mm holes for the screws to go into, so I just need to pilot the screw holes and put all the screws in. And again, putting them just below the surface so they can be filled. The reason why you should pilot drill the wood before screwing it is to prevent the wood from splitting. When you screw into the end grain of any wood, you run the risk of splitting it, MDF especially. So when you pilot drill, you leave a small tunnel for the shaft of the screw to go into, and this allows the threads to cut their way into the wood rather than splitting their way into it. That sounded kinda sexual, but you get the idea. So now I flip the unit over and I'm going to attach the other side. And again, I've already drilled the 4mm holes for the screws. This footage is not sped up, I can actually screw this fast. That sounded kinda wrong. And now I have the unit fully assembled. So now I need to do another one, so I've got to do that all over again, but by the power of editing, there was two. Magic. Right, so I've got both units assembled and I've filled up all the screw holes. This is a 2-pack filler, so this should be dry in about 20 minutes to half an hour. Although out here it's quite cold, so it'll probably take a bit longer. Right, it's been about an hour and 15 minutes and the filler's completely dry now, so it's ready for sanding. Now, when I go over this, at first I'm going to go over it with a 120 grit paper, just to cut it down. Then once I've gone over it with that, I'm going to then go over it with a 240, and that will just finish it off and give the filler a smooth edge, so there's no texture difference between that and the wood. Then I'm going to go over the whole thing with some 320 before I primer it. Right, so that's the 120 done, and it already feels quite smooth, but once I go over it with the 240, that will really smoothen it off. There you go, and that's what we want. It's nice and smooth, so when you run your finger over it, you don't want to be able to feel those bits of filler. If you can feel like bumps where the filler is, then you'll see it through the paint, so you want to get rid of them and cut them right down. Right, now the unit's had a complete rub down now with 320 paper, so it's nice and smooth and ready for primer. Now, there's lots of fine dust on there now, and you need to remove that because obviously you don't want it in your paint. Well, now the compressor's done a good job of getting rid of most of the dust off of here, but there is still a layer of fine dust which you'll have to get off, because when you come to paint, that will sit underneath your paint and give you a horrible finish, and also it could affect how well the paint sticks to the wood. So the easiest way to get this off is to use one of these things. Now, this is called a tack cloth, and so called because it basically is just a sticky cloth, and believe me, this is the only kind of sticky cloth you're going to want to get. Anyway, so basically you just run around with the cloth, and all the dust off the wood just sticks to the cloth because it's sticky. So yeah, you can see how much dust was actually still on there. So I'll basically rub over the whole thing with this. It is a bit of a tedious process, but it is necessary, and then they were white. Now, unfortunately, I didn't show any of the painting process because when I'm spraying, usually I have that door open, I open that door, and I have an industrial fan that runs in the corner there, and basically you get a good airflow through and it takes all the fumes and blows them out. But even like that, you still do get a slight fine mist of paint in the air. Now, before I'd even started filming, I had the camera set up, I shot one side of this one, and I looked and I noticed there was little bits of paint actually settling on the screen of the on the lens of the camera, and in the end I actually had to get some thinners on a cotton bud and get that off the lens. So I'm not happy having the camera out here while I'm spraying, because it's yeah, it's not going to do the lens any good, I don't think. I got it off, but it's not the point. Anyway, for now, basically just know that I've painted them up, They're nice and bright white, pure brilliant white apparently, and yeah, they're looking pretty cool actually. But there is one last step that I've got to do before I take these upstairs and fit them in, and that is I've got to put some edging strip down the ends of these bits of MDF where the end grain is exposed, because it looks pretty garbage actually, and no amount of sanding is going to make that look nice. Right, now this is thermal bond edging, and basically there's a glue on the back of it, and when you heat it up it reactivates the glue and bonds it to the wood. Now the easiest way to apply this is with this, just an old clothes iron. Now this is just a cheapy one that I've brought just for this purpose. Now you don't want to put any water in here, okay? You just want heat, you don't want any steam coming out of this because it will just wreck your edging. And you want to make sure that is on the highest setting it can go. Now when you actually come to apply the heat to the edging, you need some of this grease-proof baking paper, and full steam ahead, Captain. No. And you need to put that on your edging, okay, because you don't want any crap off of the hot plate on your iron getting on your edging, okay, because there's nothing worse than spending all that time getting a really nice finish and then you go and wreck it at the end by smearing shit all on your edging, okay. It looks very amateur and unprofessional, and we're not going to do it. Right, now applying this is fairly straightforward. You just break off a piece the length you need, and then you lay it onto your edge. Now you'll notice obviously the edging is slightly wider than your material, so you've got this little bit of a lip here, but that's good, you want that, and I'll show you how we deal with that after. And then you get your greaseproof paper and you just lay that on top of your edging like so, and then you get your iron, which is nice and hot by this point, and you literally just press the iron down onto the edging and just apply a firm pressure and just work your way along slowly like this. Always makes me laugh with these products. Look, turbo steam, and as if having something on there ridiculous as tip technology. What does that mean? Precision steam shot. Dodgy. Well, now the edging is properly bonded on here now, but if you remember from earlier, the edging is slightly wider than our material, so we've got this little lip here. Now to remove this, you need a sharp chisel, and when I say sharp, it's got to be razor sharp, not DIY sharp, okay? So you've got to make sure that you've got a nice edge on that, and then basically you run your chisel along and use like a slicing motion, like so, and you just run all the way along until you get to the other end, and basically it removes that little lip. And keep your chisel absolutely square to the edge of your unit as well, so you don't end up gouging the paint with the edge of the chisel. Well, now once you've gone down with your chisel and removed that lip, sometimes you can end up with a bit of a sharp edge on there. So to get rid of that, what you need is some really fine sandpaper. Now this is 420 grit paper. Sorry, I think I just lied to you then. Yes, I did. Sorry, that's 400 paper, not 420. And basically you want to run that along, and you don't want to do it flat to the material, okay? You want to do it about 45-degree angle, and you just literally like that. That's fine. Perfect. Just that little amount, and you'll be surprised that just gets rid of that sharp edge, and it finishes it off and makes it look lovely.
Okay, so now it's just out with the old, in with the new. So once I've worked out how I put this one together, I can unscrew it. Then I can get brutal with a flat bar. This is all going in the trash anyway, so it's the easiest way to get it out. Now, while it might be a fun way of doing it, it does make a bit of a mess. So I'll just hoover up all the little bits. That's better. And now the new one just slides in as if it was made to fit in there. Oh, hang on, it was. And now I just put a couple of screws into the worktop, and now it's all nice and solid. No wobblies, because these aren't the nice kind of wobblies. And now I'll just remove the old one from the other side, and again hoover up any little bits before the new one goes in. And the new one slides in the same way as the other side, and now I can remove the temporary prop that I put in, and a couple of screws holds it in place. And even though I can hear gunshots outside my window, I'm going to relentlessly soldier on with this voiceover. So that's 2 units fitted in, and we have this space in the middle. What's that for? Well, you'll find out once I've hoovered the space ready for a new rack. And the new rack slides in. Oh no, you can see my pants. No, you're not even funny, mate. So now I can bolt the equipment into the new rack, and that completes the build.
So now I have a nice looking but functional bench with plenty of storage space for records, and it's sturdy and fits everything I need on it. Right, now let's talk money. So how much did it all cost? Well, the worktop was a pricey £85, the 8x4 sheet of MDF was £17 and the glue was a £5. A box of screws was £3.50, the biscuits were £3 and the edging strip was a very cheap £2. And paint, filler and sandpaper came in at a very reasonable £28. So in total, £143.50.
Now 150 quid sounds like a lot of money, but when you consider what I've actually got for that money, it's pretty good. I mean, you know, it looks nice, it's sturdy, it's well built, it's custom made and tailored for the space that I'm going to put it in, and it's exactly what I wanted. Now you try and get all of that and get something that's built to this standard from a joining firm for less than 150 quid. I think you're going to find it very difficult, to be quite honest with you, so it's pretty good. Right, now before I call this project completely finished, there is one last little James touch that I've got to add to this, because you know I love LEDs and it wouldn't be the icing on the cake without it, really, would it? Yeah, now it's finished. So there you go. Now I hope you've enjoyed the video, and if you've got any comments or questions or constructive criticism, bung it below in the comments section, and if you do ask any questions, I'll try and get round to answering those as soon as I can. So there you go. Thank you for watching. Nice one.